sponsored by MTN. MTN, everywhere you go.
Good morning. Welcome to the 8 at 8. NASA is already in the studios. Earlier on, we referred to a couple that are seemingly very happy because apparently the man is such a spoiler. He is taking what they are married. You know, it's not just a thing of I'm trying to impress you, but he is taking the wife to places. They are going to Dubai. They made Dubai seem like it's, you know,
Musanze.
it's like BK Arena.
Yeah.
You know,
like
they're just in Dubai all the time having
First
fun.
of all, some of us don't go to Musanze like that. Don't underestimate Musanze.
No,
Musanze is expensive.
Yeah, I even exactly my point. So you see, for them, they made it look like it's just nearby here.
Musanze is more expensive than Dubai.
Really?
By the way.
Fill me in. You're scaring me because I want to go for this whole thing of.
Those people who go to Dubai know it. Like they live there in Deira, $50 hotels. We don't have $50 hotels in Musanze. By the way, we don't have $50 hotels
we
in
don't?
Musanze. No.
So where am I going to stay in Kwitizini?
Musanze is $120 and above, and
So
don't even compare.
I should lower my expectations.
Just say they make Musanze seem like Dubai.
Okay, the couple we're talking about, they actually fly to the Maldives like there's no tomorrow. Like it's just a weekend. Like we have just gone up country. That's the same guy who throws baby moon. The woman just gave birth recently. There was a baby shower, then there's a baby moon, then there's the pop. A lot of things that just make life.
Pop the balloon.
I know. Like coming back from the hostel, it's another party.
Another party. Then from one trip,
people.
from Dubai, you're going to Zanzibar.
Pressure, you're
then
going
from
to kill us.
Zanzibar, you're going to Greece. I mean, this
NASA,
kind of husbands.
what do you make of
But
such
then
a
NASA says,
No, just no snitching.
okay,
Okay, so here's the thing. I'm here to create what they call self-awareness.
Yes.
It's very hard for me to create like an episode here on this show, which is just 30 minutes about self-awareness. It will just be me going on about jargon and people won't even get the essence of the thing. So what I've been doing for the last couple of months is what we call pre-indoctrination, right? Mm-hmm. I'm taking time for a period of teaching people different things and different parts of life and whatnot. And then one day I'll start chopping away on the violence. Like we'll have an episode where I come on radio and be like, for those of you who don't wear deodorant, self-awareness.
Wait, in the gym I actually saw those.
Exactly. So
I was
I'll
about
start
to say
from
why.
there. So I'm not yet there. For now, I cannot make fun of people who don't wear deodorant because I'm still teaching. You get like, let's first teach. So Jesse, that couple that you guys are talking about, first of all, me, I don't have any problem with couples. I don't like talking about couples and relationships. It's my least favorite topic.
yeah, but you know, I have.
I just want to pick your
I
mind.
have this
Public display of affection, in my opinion. This is my opinion.
Yes.
This is not like a general thing. I'm not generalizing. I'm just saying, in my opinion, public display of affection on social media and all those things is a sign that there's something wrong with you guys. Like,
Really?
I feel like the guys that enjoy their lives don't actually post their stuff. It's private. It's just between them. What are you posting? Like, why do we need to know
For the world
that you
to
guys
know
spoil? Yes, so the world.
that we are doing very well.
Okay,
You
cool.
know, somebody who said that
People find
the
satisfaction in that, by
sweetest
the way.
things
You do
in
realize
life.
Kim Kardashian and Kanye West were doing very well. Eh?
Listen,
Those ones, leave them, they are sick.
P. Diddy was also doing very
no,
well.
let me ask you,
You're bringing this one here.
NASA and Juliana, let me
This
ask
story
you.
of Diddy will not end.
P. Diddy and Casey were doing very well.
Do you
Oh, Meek
believe
For
that-
very many years.
Do you believe that the best things in life actually happen when eyes are closed?
Of course.
Exactly.
For example, like what? Like kissing?
No, that's not what we're talking about.
I understand what
We
you're
are
talking
saying,
about. I'm just saying.
if your relationship is going very well, like look at Juliana here, no snitching, but she cannot post the jama. Like you'll never see him, never, because things are going
Keep
very well
that
for her.
jama to yourself, my
Yes.
friend. It is very important.
Never.
I don't have one for now, by the way.
Last week I talked about like a type of love, self-love, right? So if you're posting your things out there, it means that's narcissism. It's another sickness. Now we'll talk
I'm even
about that
failing to
one
post
day.
my gym things because I fear you're going
You
to
know what,
comment.
Jesse? Next Monday, let's talk about narcissism because I need people to understand what's going on here, right? Let's talk about narcissism. They might actually argue that us here on radio, we are also narcissistic because we are always here going on about things and telling people how things and what. But anyway, jumping into today's topic,
We just want a conversation. There's
no
not
more
that deep.
relationships,
No.
guys.
You have
no.
a few. I agree with you. Let's get into our topic.
Let's forget about relationships because today we are chopping away at I call it pre-indoctrination. We've been teaching over the last couple of months. I've talked about conflict. I've taught people about burnout. I've taught people about what they call something syndrome, the syndrome where you feel like imposter syndrome, right? I've talked about so many other things. Today I'm teaching something also under self-awareness called unconscious bias. I don't know if you've heard of that statement before.
Unconscious bias.
Unconscious bias.
What is that?
So unconscious bias, also known as implicit bias, refers to attitudes, stereotypes that affect our understanding, actions, and decisions. These biases are automatic and unintentional. They influence how people perceive others and make judgments about them even realizing it. Like, it happens to all of us, by the way. I have it, you have it, we all have it. Maybe I'll explain it a bit more. It's basic. It can affect your behavior in the workplace, in education, in healthcare, and in other social settings. I'll give you a quick example before I even explain what unconscious bias is. In the workplace, for instance, unconscious bias can influence hiring decisions, performance evaluations, career progression, and equal opportunities for individuals and other different backgrounds without realizing it. So we need to address this. So it's a part of self-awareness, right? So I'll go into it. Some common types of unconscious bias include affinity bias. This one is basically you favoring people who are like you, people who are similar to you in nature. Like, you favor them. Like, you literally, I think you've heard in the US where they say if like a black person walks up to like a white person's house and knocks on their door, they get alarmed. They're like, should I call the police? But if it's a white person and they show up and they're like, hey, can I use your phone? I have an emergency. I need to make a call. The person will open the door, and then that's how they get robbed. So if you have a crew of like, if you guys are robbers and stuff, you're going to need like a person who looks like the people in the neighborhood you're going to rob. You know what I mean? So it's like affinity bias. But that's just a quick example. It can also be in different settings. Like here in Africa, you guys look at different colors of people and say, okay, obviously this one is wealthy because they look a certain way.
Because they have a belly.
Okay, now that
because they are healthy. I want to use the word fat.
I'm not even going to say anything about that one. But yeah.
But isn't that how we describe rich people?
How different is what you're talking about from being judgmental?
It is pretty much almost the same, but the difference is in unconscious bias. So being judgmental, you're actually intentionally judging a person, right? In unconscious bias, you don't even know you're doing it until like someone educates you about it. And then later on, you're like, oh my God, I've been doing that all these years and I didn't know. So with unconscious bias, it's like you're subliminally not... You're not aware that you're doing it. You know what I mean? Like, it's because of where you come from. The first one is affinity bias. The second one is confirmation bias, like a tendency to seek out and interpret information that confirms what you already believe in. Like, no matter what you think. I'll give you a quick example.
I get that.
There's Andrew Tate, the guy who sells male products on social media. So he has to create this persona about himself that he's a hard guy, he's a misogynist, he doesn't give a damn about the opposite gender and all that stuff. And he makes like so many comments. Like he appeals to these guys who are like red pill, who are really pissed at women. But Andrew Tate put on this persona because he wants to sell male fitness products, and it worked very well for him, and he made hundreds of millions out of it. Now, when they put a case on him about inappropriate things with women, like what's happening with P. Diddy, people quickly believe that Andrew Tate did it, even if there was no like evidence. You get, huh? So that's what they call confirmation bias. Now, when they bring you a guy like Reverend T.D. Jakes, because T.D. Jakes is known to be like a very renowned,
family-oriented.
Yes, he's a leader of the community. He's a religious person. He also looks very, very trustable. He's like a dad figure. And they tell you that T.D. Jakes did something. So both Andrew Tate and T.D. Jakes had like a case on them, but none of them had evidence against them, right? Maybe even with T.D. Jakes it was a lie, but you saw how people quickly defended T.D. Jakes because of the background
What
he comes
he brings,
from.
yes,
That's called confirmation bias. They were like, T.D. Jakes didn't do it. But how do you know he didn't do it?
But also they say in that whole saga of Diddy, there's a pastor involved.
Okay, like I don't want to go into Diddy because I like Diddy music. Diddy as a person, terrible stuff. R. Kelly as a person, terrible stuff. Haven't you ever had like music you like of certain like celebrities and artists, and you're like, I wish I never knew the reality of how these people live? Like me knowing the things that Diddy does and how he lives. If he actually did those things, that is so bad. Because I grew up at the time of P. Diddy, B.I.G., Tupac, Jay-Z. So I really do not want to find out how my celebrities live, like in real life. I really don't want to find out. It's like a time I found out that one of my favorite comedians, Louis C.K., the stuff he was saying on stage, he actually does those things. I was so terrified.
We cancel them. I think that's the way to go. Just cancel all these guys.
So confirmation bias is when you only interpret information the way you want to interpret it. It's very common with the topics you guys love, relationships. There's so many red flags
Someone
with this
here
guy.
says someone needs to buy a drink. He says, I need to buy Nas a drink for the suggestion of that such topics.
Yes. So there's you've seen like what they call red flags in relationships. You try to tell your friends certain things about like a spouse they have who's actually doing the stuff, and they don't believe you. They just think you're haters because they have confirmation bias. They really love this person so much that they won't even get into the idea of entertaining that this person can do what they do, you know. And the third one, moving on, is called halo effect. Halo, like HALO. And it's allowing a single positive trait to influence the overall judgment of a person. I think you can see this in the American elections, like when people say we trust Kamala Harris because number one, she's a woman. We'll get into that later.
Democrat.
And also she's a Democrat. Democrats are nice people, blah, blah, blah. We don't actually know if Kamala Harris is capable of being president. We also don't know if Donald Trump is capable of being a good president. We actually don't know if any of those two candidates is capable of being president. But then we are using like a halo effect because we know that one of them seems a bit more intelligible. The way they talk to people is a bit, you know, so it's called halo effect. So one single positive trait, you're like, I love this person because this and that and that and that. Or TD Jakes as an example. He's a reverend. He's served the community very well. So we don't really think he can molest people. But I think people are people. They can do anything. So
anyone is capable of doing anything.
I just want to know, how can we break these biases? Because
we are getting into them. We are still diving into more of them.
there are several.
Yeah, there are several. There's one called horn effect, like a horn of a cow or a rhino, allowing a single. Now, horn effect is the opposite of halo
Can we
effect.
just spell the horn bit?
Horn, HORN.
Okay.
So horn effect is similar to halo effect, but the difference is that in halo effect is one single positive trait that makes you trust a person fully. Now in horn effect, it's one single negative trait that will overshadow all other qualities. Like P. Diddy does the one thing, and we don't want to listen to his music anymore.
I know.
I think we should
I
stick
was
to
waiting
listening
for
to
people
P.
to
Diddy
boycott
music
his
and
music.
forget about P. Diddy as a person. Because there's a time I was driving down this green track which people run on in the morning, and then my Spotify was on shuffle, and I landed on an R. Kelly collabo with P. Diddy. I'm like, Jesus Christ.
Did you ever what was that?
Jesus
What did you
Christ.
ever
I skimmed through it very quickly. I'm like, I cannot be caught listening to this stuff. Both of these people are terrible people, you know? And then there's one called gender bias, which is like the most common, where stereotypes or preferences affect how you perceive the trait of individuals based on their gender. Because it's a she cannot steal from you.
Stereotyping
Exactly.
gender.
You're like, women are more trustable in the finance department because they can't. What do you mean? It has nothing to do with anything.
Men are very protective.
Yeah, something like that. There's a lot of bias in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he's a man, he's a hard guy. No.
a lie.
Men can also be vulnerable. Then there's what they call racial bias. I'm not even going to explain what that one is. Let's forget about it. You guys know what it is. That one, if anyone doesn't know what racial bias is, well, read history. Read about Tipu Tipu, Saidi, Black Lives Matter, Tulsa. There's a lot of content out there. And then there's what they call ageism. It's also a bias where you're biased against individuals because of their age. I think the ageism.
I don't want to hang around the boomers.
No, it's not about boomers, actually. Most people default to that, like older people. But I give an example of ageism where you think because someone is older, they're a bit more sensible, they're a bit more experienced.
That's
but
the assumption.
There are older people out there who are
Porridge.
who need to be cancelled. Then there's the last one is called name bias, where marketing assumptions or judgments about a person are based on their name. Like you imagine a guy called Osama. I mean, I have
Laden, that's the conclusion.
No, Chill Bin Laden. I have Sudanese friends who are called Osama. It's actually a very lovely name. There's a lot of like Muslims called Osama, and they're biased because of that.
I know someone will actually get biased immediately by the time they hear the word Osama.
So to answer your question, Jesse, how do we reduce unconscious bias? I think it involves self-awareness. Self-awareness is a large topic. It's what I've been teaching for the last couple of months. It involves education. You guys need a bit of education, and I don't mean school, and implementing strategies to mitigate the impact of it. Like, for example, bias training. Companies give that as well, especially multinational corporations where they have like multiple people from different continents. They like big corporations teach like bias training. Then there's structured decision making where you use like a flow chart to actually choose your decisions. You don't base on a person or their appearance or any of that. And then there's maybe diversity and inclusion, promoting diversity and inclusion. Like, for example, here on this show, every morning I tell you guys, the relationships are not just between he and she. There's also they
No,
them,
today we talked about they and
they
remembered
are, it. Some people are into it. They're
No,
furries
there's no
and
it.
stuff. Yeah, there's it.
you. There's they only.
No, there's many
There's he,
other
she,
things.
and
There's
they.
non-binary.
Please.
Guys, educate yourself.
We
That's
are
the education
learning.
I'm talking about. Jesse,
Oh.
educate. You guys need education.
As far as gender is concerned, I don't think Jesse and I will need more. But okay, well, we need to get people involved. Inclusive
Listen, when you say education,
about gender,
that we should
sensitivity.
take time to, and you're saying we should not read books. How are we getting this kind of
No,
education?
I didn't say don't read books. I said education is not school.
It's not school. So we should just go and
It's
read.
beyond school.
We
Like
should read a book.
experience in life, talking to other people. Like Jesse, do you have any friends who are they?
Of course.
I have a
Then
lot of
stick
friends who are
around
there.
them. They'll tell you how things work. Like they'll explain to you how difficult it is to be a they.
And then I get the bias.
No, you'll get the bias out of yourself. You'll be like, you know what? I think these things, I guess everyone will be judged according to their life. It doesn't matter.
Listen, when our elders are speaking to us, they caution us about the environment where you immerse yourself. Okay? They always give me this analogy. I remember my uncle clearly telling me that when you put a sponge into water,
It
absorbs that water and it becomes weight and heavy. If you simply left the sponge on the table, it will be lighter, isn't it? So the environment where you place yourself, you start to soak in stuff, you become heavy with this stuff. They start to influence your attitudes and how you look at life.
I agree.
Now, when you talk about these different biases, and you're asking me that the education I need is to have an experience, sit down with people of different values in life that are not my values. Of course, if I go to Mecca today and I spend there a year, likely my mindset would start to think maybe actually being a Muslim is a good thing. Or if I spend time with the TD Jacksons of the world, I'll start to pick on their environment, their way of thinking, and to start develop another bias. So how do you balance, being able to be a critical thinker? I'm looking at an article here by Tom Ndahiro. The title of this, which is in the New Times, they speak about President Paul Kagame on positive faith and a call for critical thinking. Sometimes you sit in an environment and you're totally brainwashed. Like someone brainwashes you and tells you, listen, in as much as you have the male organs,
You can still have a female organ as well.
Yes, but
you can still feel female.
Yes, but that's where you guys get it wrong. So critical thinking is when you take all that knowledge, like what Jesse gave an example, which is the sponge. You absorb all that knowledge, but now the final decision is up to you to decide. I'll give you a quick
Sometimes
example.
it can weigh on you.
I know, but it's
Yeah.
good to absorb. I'll give you a quick example. Do you know that it is better to make decisions about your life from a point of information than when you do not know from a point of feelings? I'll give you an example. Like, there are a lot of people out there who chose to do things because of the way they felt about them. And they're like, I do what makes me happy. These people have had very many problems in their lives. Like people who say they do what makes them happy. Mm-hmm. I think the best decisions in life are the ones where you sit around with those people you're talking about, Jesse, because that one is called affinity bias, right? You absorb so many things from different people, but now the ultimate decision is yours. Like, wouldn't you want to know what's on the other side so that you can decide for yourself?
There's a possibility that it's going to corrupt me if I
No,
get to know.
no,
And
no, no,
maybe
no, no,
because
no.
I consume a lot of it,
No.
it made way off the
No,
other
like
side.
I'll
of
give
me.
you an example, Juliana. Have you been on those conversations on the table about gender when you're having a gender topic discussion? Because gender is about men and women, not just women, right? Then we talk about the topic of gender balance. And then often, most of the times, the ladies on the table get offended when the guys are talking because the guys don't take time to actually go and first absorb some of the content on the other side of the table and understand it from the perspective of the women on the table, and then know why things are the way they are, and then come back this side and say, okay, now I'm going to take a decision based on that. They'll just say, no, that is rubbish, that is this and that, you're supposed to be this and that because it is the way, and it is because of the way we grew up, and it is, and then you'll see the ladies on the table just quiet saying, this guy is talking from a point of feeling and not information.
And exactly, and of course not being gender sensitive.
You need to first get that information. So just to answer your question, if you've not gotten that other side of education, maybe you're terrified because you don't want to get biased about it, or you don't want to get pulled in by it. That's why I brought up this topic of unconscious bias. Before you get an education about the other side, you're already biased. So the education you're going to get is not an education about the other side. The education you're going to get is an education about spotting the areas in which you're biased, and then applying critical thinking there and say, okay guys, listen, when it comes to this topic, because it is a topic about they, and I am very biased about they, them, I'm going to step away from this conversation and let other people who are not biased about it decide. Assuming just say you're like a politician or a parliamentary representative of like your region, you do not want to get into topics about they, them, gender. You'll call upon a person who is like an expert at it. You're like, I think I need a gender expert to come and explain these things because me, I'm biased. Where I come from, men are men, women are women, blah blah blah. You know what I mean, right? So that means you're critically thinking. You've understood your weakness, which is I only know two genders, and that is a weakness. But we don't live in a world where there's only two genders. So let me bring in other people who can indulge and delve into it more. I'm gonna step away from this topic.
Listen, okay, this we could go on and on, but have you been to a counselor? Like when they ask you those serious questions of why you are not married or why it's taking you too long to really
Well, unfortunately,
get
I've
married.
never had.
Neither have I, because I've
had
not yet hit that critical
I haven't
edge.
hit yet.
I've not yet hit that
I
critical
think
edge
the
where
only counselor I have done,
Can
the
I
only
finish?
counselor we
Can I
have probably
finish?
seen
Can I
is the
finish?
one when you're having an HIV test. That
Can
is
I,
the
can
only
I, can I
counselor.
finish the statement?
Yes.
Now,
oh my god.
why are you dying?
Jesse, where have you reached that level of seeing counselors to ask you such questions?
Listen,
They're not called counselors. They're
What
called
are they?
counselors, but they're called
There's
what?
that age you get
They're
to
called
where
what?
you don't have a left and right knee, where you have a bad knee and a good knee. That's when you need to see a counselor.
now, these guys will normally say statements such as, you are not married because you're spending a lot of time with unmarried people.
Oh really?
Yeah?
Wow. Is that what they told you?
Listen, those are biases.
I am biased.
Please go on.
Or they will tell you your marriage is not going well because your peers, your influence is unmarried people. Or they will tell you you are not progressing in life because of your unserious
Friends.
people around you. Are these biases by counselors? Are these realities?
I think when they put it that way, they oversimplify the situation. I think on the one hand, they might be right because your decisions might be affected by the group of people you hang out with, the affinity bias bit, right? Unconsciously.
That
But on
takes
the other,
us back to
yes,
the gender bias. You see
Ye-
now what we're telling you?
yes,
that-
but unconsciously, they might be actually biased about, like, it can't be 100% because of the people you hang out with. There's another percentage which is you not being able to critically think for yourself and make decisions in your life. So because of that inability to think critically and make decisions in your life, your decisions are often most times affected by your crew members. So what I teach here every morning on Monday is for people to actually critically think on their own, so that even when you're with a large group of people, their decisions affect you like only 30%.
What did you call the other people that are ruled by peer? Like there's a certain,
Yes, there's a certain type of character that is
yes.
often pulled in by like peer pressure and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
trust me, guys, you're impervious to these kind of things. if you learn how to critically think for yourself. And you're not going to learn that in one day. It takes some time. I've been teaching for a very long time, Jesse. I've taught how to manage conflict. I've taught how to manage, and today I've taught unconscious bias. I'll send some reading resources. By the way, this show is not for anyone who doesn't read. So anyone who listens to me on every Monday and you don't want to go and do your own research, this is not for you. And I'm always talking to my friends. Like last time we spoke about relationships and love and whatever, and I explained to them, guys, I'm not an expert on love. I simply brought some reading materials about love. You guys can go and do your own research. I wasn't speaking about love. I was not giving advice about love. I was giving content,
About
information about love, like where you can find some information.
This is a final note as we do our parting shots. Now that you brought in the love element, Algeron, I did ask Juliana,
Which is
They
your
said
favorite
Jesse, me
topic?
and you speak about love a lot.
What is the best part?
Eh?
What is the best part
Of
for
being
you
single.
of being single?
Of being single. So what is the definition of single? Unmarried or
Unmarried, not
does
dating.
being in a relationship count as being single?
No, that's not being single.
The
Unmarried,
best part
not
of
dating.
me being single.
Like you're a freelancer just.
I don't understand the question. You know
Okay,
why I don't
so-
understand?
Baby, what's okay, now the best part of being single? Want you into understanding the question?
The reason why I don't understand the question is because of two parts. Number one, it is snitchy in nature.
You're just trying to avoid the question.
I'm not going to snitch. I have the right to remain silent. Number
Or
one.
this will be used against you.
Number two, this question falls within the purview of relationships. And me and relationships,
Stop it.
nah, we're not going to talk about relationships. We're talking
We are
about
just talking
character
about
development.
single.
No, I
Singleness
saw
is
what
not,
Jesse
single
did
is
there.
not being in a
He
relationship.
snuck that question in there, but we are talking about unconscious bias. Back to unconscious bias, Jesse. You need an education on unconscious bias. Not an education in general, but an education on unconscious bias is required so that you can know yourself. It's like a part
See
of
how smart you took
self-awareness.
us back to
No,
unconscious
like
bias.
we stick to the point here. Where you guys can know, Juliana here can know that every time she sees a man with those boxers, she needs not to be biased. Like you start
My God,
aligning.
you're still talking about
Yeah, you align your
I know people
chakras.
took offense on that.
No,
the
you
ones who were
align,
there.
you align your chakras. You're like, okay, this Jama is not the other Jama. The other Jama broke my heart, but it's not the other guy. Like, let's not.
His
like,
box of a boxer, the checked one more box.
by the way, Jesse, have you ever heard of a statement? This one I'm going to leave it out for people to think about. That, like water, you take up the shape in which you occupy. Your mind takes up the shape in which it occupies, right? So today I'm teaching you guys critical thinking, where you decide for yourself. You take all the information in,
How
and then
you
you
sieve
decide
it.
for yourself, and then you even look into it and say, am I not biased about this? Am I the right person to think about it? Am I the cleverest person in the world? I'm not Jesus. I'm going back in all my lessons, right? And should this be something I step away from? So all that information is required. So unconscious bias is actually something that's affecting a lot of people out here. In Rwanda, when people hear you have an accent and you don't speak proper Kinyarwanda, already unconsciously they're biased.
NASA on the 8 at 8. Cleverly dodging the critical question because of biases, but we shall be back to it next week.
Kigali in the morning.